Recording in progress. Hello. This is Abundant Housing LA with the Our Future LA Coalition. We are ready to tell y'all about this new ballot measure, right? So we know that there is a housing crisis. We know that there is a housing shortage. We know that there are lots of reasons that not enough housing is being made. We don't have the funds. In some places, it's literally not legal to build multifamily houses or units or things like that. And so we want to do something about that, right? We have to do something about that. And so tonight we are just going to give you a little bit of a primer on this ballot measure that Our Future LA County Coalition has proposed. We want to get this ballot measure on the November ballot. And so that is going to require folks knowing about it. It's going to require some folks to get some signatures. It's a lot, but I think it's really for a good cause. This measure is going to reduce homelessness. It will help make housing more affordable across LA County, and it will address the root causes of homelessness. Now, this is a sales tax thing, and we'll get into this in a little bit, but it does not apply to groceries, rent or mortgage, EBT purchases, medicine, or gas. So that's a plus, right? We get to fund the affordable housing, work on ending homelessness, and it's just through a very simple ballot measure, through a tax. So let me stop rambling and let me get this thing going. And I have wonderful people here today that are my co-hosts. We have Aditi and we have Jaime. Aditi is with United Way LA, and Jaime is my colleague at Abundant Housing LA. And so we are going to tell you all about this ballot measure. So let me get this going. Let me share. Why? I'm having trouble. Why am I? Oh, there it is. Okay, so I'm just blind. So there's that. Okay. Hey, so here's the deck that we got. We're going to show y'all everything you need to know from this. So, do I need the presenter view? I don't know if I need the presenter view. Can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So, affordable housing, homelessness solutions, and preventative now initiative. As I said, proposed by the Our Future LA County Coalition. So, what is this? So, despite heroic work, homelessness keeps climbing. I always tell folks that our housing crisis and shortage is a symptom of not having enough supply to meet the demand for housing. 30,000 plus people are currently receiving services or housing funded by an existing countywide tax for homelessness, and 100,000 plus people have ended their homelessness over the last 5 years. The average rent is $2,349 for a 2-bedroom apartment in LA County, which requires a wage of $45 an hour to afford. I don't know who makes $45 an hour. I don't. And so that's outrageous. 521,000 households do not have access to an affordable home in LA County. So what we're seeing here is that homelessness keeps climbing. All the stuff that we're doing, it's not for nothing, but we need to do more. We need to be a little bit more forceful, and we really want to get ahead of the steps that we're taking. So that's sort of some background. So what are we going to do about this? Well, the purpose of this citizens initiative is to learn from what has worked and what hasn't, and to use goals-based accountability to fund LA County's comprehensive homelessness response system, as well as invest in new strategies to address street encampments, prevent homelessness, and create affordable housing. So this measure would terminate and replace the existing 4th-cent sales tax that currently funds the homelessness response system with an expanded half-cent sales tax that also helps make housing more affordable. So that's a 4th tax, so 0.25, up to a half-cent tax, which is 0.5. Not that much more. So what is this going to do? And how is it different than the stuff that we already have? Like we just said, there is a 4th cent tax that we're sort of repealing as part of this. Well, this measure is going to reduce homelessness. How? By investing in new strategies that help people move from encampments into housing permanently. I think we're seeing sometimes interim shelters, things like that. They're good. We need people to have some sort of shelter to be safe from the elements and things of that nature. But we want to do that on a more secure way, in a more secure level, right? This measure will help make housing more affordable across LA County. How? By investing in new strategies to create more affordable housing, preserve the affordable housing we have, and support for people at risk of homelessness. Um, in my studies, in various academia, homelessness has often been referred to as a wicked problem, and that is that there are so many different issues. There's so many contributing factors to folks experiencing housing insecurity and homelessness. And so that is the support for people at risk of homelessness is really important as well. We want to make sure that people are getting the services they need, so that way they are properly housed and can live their life the way that they should be able to. This measure will address the root causes of homelessness, how it will increase funding and focus on support for people struggling with mental health and or substance use disorder. That sounds like good stuff to me. So I'd like to hand it over to Aditi to go over the components of this Core Citizens Initiative ballot measure. Aditi, please take it and let me know when you want me to change the slide.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Joshua. Good evening. My name is Aditi Shakarwar. I work for United Way of Greater Los Angeles, which is part of the Our Future LA Coalition. And so I'm going to walk us through the core components of the ballot measure. So I'm going to be talking about what is actually in the ballot measure. And then I think I'm going to hand it over to Jaime or Joshua, and they're going to talk about the actual getting this onto the ballot measure. So next slide, please. All right, so one thing about this measure that's exciting that we haven't seen before is that it has outcome goals. And so you'll notice here, we have words like increase and reduce, but we don't have actual hard numbers. And the reason for that is because it's very, very difficult to change things that are written into a ballot measure. We don't want to be overly prescriptive. We know that things might change over time. A number that makes sense today might not make sense in 10 years. But at the same time, we don't just want to have fluffy number or, fluffy words like increase and reduce. We actually want to put some numbers behind them. So these numbers will be added to these goals by April 1st, 2025 at the latest. And the goals and the numbers should be determined by the executive committee, which will be sort of overseeing this measure. And these goals will have short, medium, and long-term goals. So, 5 years, 10 years, because it takes some time for us to see results and to see whether these programs are working or not. And failure to achieve these goals will result in shifting funds from programs that are not performing very well to programs that are highly effective. So next slide, please. So this slide goes over the allocation summary of what the money, which is probably going to be about $1.2 billion a year. And how is that going to be split up? So 50% of the money from this ballot measure is going to go towards homeless services. And so this is to continue to fund the homeless services that are already happening, through that quarter-cent sales tax that we already have. And also keeping in mind that as people get into permanent supportive housing, or as people, get back on their feet, they need services, right? They also need social workers or outreach workers, other folks to give them that support. So even though we're housing people, there's still a need there. So this number sort of accounts for that growth, because as we're successful in housing people, we're also growing the services that those folks need. 24% from this ballot measure will go towards housing, and that will either be the construction of new affordable housing, or it will be the preservation of existing affordable housing, whether that would be through purchasing that housing or any other number of ways. 12% of the funding is going to go towards homelessness prevention, which means things like short-term rental assistance, eviction defense, right to counsel, all of those good things that prevent folks from falling into homelessness in the first place, which is much cheaper and also a lot less traumatic for folks. And then lastly, 11% is going to be flexible, and these funds can be used either for housing or services. And I'll get more into how those funds can be used in a little bit. So next slide, please. All right, so this slide is about accountability. So how are we going to make sure that we are actually being effective in doing the things we say we're going to be doing? So with this measure, we will have a mandatory creation of a regional needs assessment and regional plan. And so, the purpose of that is to make sure that we're zooming out. We're not getting so stuck in the day-to-day and the sort of crisis management, putting out fires, that we're forgetting the big picture. So this will really help us plan for the future in an effective way, make sure that we're doing things that are most effective, that will get us to our goals as quickly as possible. The next thing is real-time evaluation and accountability. And these are, I think what's interesting about this measure is that we're having outcome-based standards instead of output-based standards. So, for example, the measure is not saying the goal is to create X amount of housing units or place X amount of people into interim shelter beds, right? The question is actually, once we do those things, is homelessness going down? Is housing affordability increasing? So we're switching from output to outcome-based standards. And then the last thing, transparency and communication. We will be having a leadership table that will be made up of experts, including folks with lived experience with homelessness. And they're going to be holding regular listening and learning sessions, and they're going to be sharing the results of the outcome goals and where we are, and take feedback from the public. So next slide, please. So this slide goes into a little bit more detail about that 11% I talked about earlier that's flexible. And the two pots of money that are flexible are the Local Solutions Fund and the Homelessness Prevention and Encampment Resolution Innovation Fund, which is a mouthful. So for the Local Solutions Fund, this comes from the services funding, and this is for cities or for local jurisdictions. And this money will be distributed to cities for them to use how they want, as long as it's consistent with the purposes of the measure. And this is intended to really bring all 88 cities in LA County to the table, provide them with some funds and incentives to be a part of the solution, and have some great local programs started from this. On the Innovation Fund, this is money that's really meant to go towards those interesting and innovative pilot projects, things we haven't done before but are showing promising results. For example, something like Inside Safe or Pathway Home are new things that we're seeing right now. And so we could try new innovative solutions with this innovation fund as well. Next slide, please. And then I think I'm close to the end here, but the revenue source for this measure, which Joshua talked about a little bit earlier, will be a 0.5-cent sales tax. It's going to be terminating a 1/4-cent tax, so it's really a net increase of a 1/4 cent. As a reminder, sales tax doesn't apply to most of our basic needs, including groceries, medicine, rent, gas, EBT purchases. The average annual increase in sales tax for a low-income household would be $30 a year, average household $59 a year, and high-income household $160 a year. And an interesting fact that's not in this slide deck is that almost, I believe, 3/4, it's like a little over 70% of sales tax is not paid by residents. It's actually paid by businesses or by tourists or people who are staying in LA County. So the bulk of the funding from this measure will not come from you and me, the average person, but actually from businesses making those large business purchases. Next slide, please. All right, so here are just some key facts and numbers to remember. So the homeless services side, with this measure, if this measure passes, then over 30,000 people will be able to continue to receive services and housing support. Over 22,000 people will continue to receive services in their supportive housing, and services are crucial to staying in supportive housing. And then almost 9,000 people will be able to stay in interim housing beds that will be able to continue to operate. And like I said before, increased funding covers anticipated growth of these programs. On the affordable housing and homelessness prevention side, in the next 10 years, we will generate $3 billion for affordable housing production and preservation, which is triple the amount of money we're currently investing. And in the next 10 years, we will generate $1 billion for homelessness prevention and at-risk renter support, which is 5 times the current Measure H investment in prevention. The current Measure H prevention investment is only 4% of its overall budget. And as the saying goes, I think it's an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So we definitely want to increase that number. Next slide, please. So this is a list of supporters. It's almost a month old, and I know it's a bit outdated at this point. We've actually gotten quite a few more supporters since then. We are looking forward to increasing our supporter base as well. And I think that is my last slide. Yeah,
Yep.
thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Aditi. So I would like to now hand it over to Jaime Del Rio, who's going to tell us a little bit about canvassing and signature gathering. Do you have any kind of slide or anything you want me to share while you're speaking, Jaime?
I do.
Do you want to share it?
Actually, let me share it.
I just made you co-host.
I just have this one that I'm gonna share. All right. Can you guys see that slide?
Yep. Check.
All right. So how we're gonna make this reality. So the biggest energy and bulk of our energy for passing the ballot measure is that we need to canvass for the ballot measure. We need to gather signatures, which are due by April. We have like a soft due date by March. So that is the biggest bulk of energy that we're focusing on with this ballot measure for it to qualify for the November ballot measure. So there's 3 ways how you guys can participate and get involved with the ballot measure. The first one is I encourage you all to go to these to pick up packages at these 4 locations. Times are indicated there in the red. So on these locations, you'll be able to pick up packages, and also you will drop them off there once you complete the signatures. And this is something that I encourage everyone to get signatures from your family and friends. Please reach out to your family and friends, take some packages when you go out to with your friends or family gatherings, which is really important because we want to focus with our members gathering signatures as well. It's not just us canvassing, but also we want to focus with our members gathering signatures with your family and friends. And another way that you guys can get involved is through canvassing with us. So in the coming weeks, we are going to be canvassing, and we currently have three canvassing opportunities. We're still working on getting those penciled in, but for now we have March 9th. The time is to be determined, but ideally we're going to start in the morning. We're looking into doing the canvassing in East LA, hosted by the Eastside Housing for All chapter. Our next canvassing opportunity is going to be on March 10th, to be determined on the time. Location will be in the South Bay. And then on Sunday, March 17th, this is going to be a canvassing opportunity in the LA Marathon. We're going to be starting early in the morning. So those are 3 opportunities that we have in Abundant House in LA that we're going to get out there and canvass. However, I do encourage you, if you do want to canvass in weekly basis, to I'm going to pop in this link in the chat. I don't know if I could do that. Let me see. I'm trying to see how I can do this. So let me stop sharing. I'm going to put it in the chat. So this is our canvassing opportunities for our future LA. They're going to be doing weekly canvassing opportunities. So if you are not available in those 3 days that AHLA is going to be canvassing with our chapters, I encourage you to go into this link and RSVP for the next canvassing opportunity. You know, this is really important. We need to gather as many signatures as possible to qualify for the November ballot measure. And we have a very short span right now. We're doing okay in terms of signature gathering, but we still need more from you guys. We need you guys to get out there. And this is really important because this is going to fund affordable housing and also provide services to the community. So this is something that we're going to be losing if we don't get this funding mechanism moving forward. We're going to end up losing that mechanism that Measure H was provided, but however, Measure H didn't provide that enough service that was supposed to provide funding affordable housing. So those are some other opportunities that how you guys can get involved with Abundant House in LA, our future LA, or if you want to do any of your signature gatherings yourself, I encourage you to pick up packages and in your own time. And I'll pass it to you, Josh.
Okay, thank you. And this is what I have this background, dang it. But this is what it looks like. Hopefully you can see it. It's kind of a big, long package, but really, like, we can provide talking points. We have one pager that we can share to folks that will actually be circulating these forms around and getting them signed. So it's good stuff. I'm wondering if any of the folks that we have here tonight, if you have questions about anything that hopefully we can answer for you. Kim or Angel, if you have any questions, we're happy to take those. Go, Kim.
I wanted to ask, so we're centering this effort on street encampments. What about the people that are unhoused that are not in encampments?
Do you want to take that, Aditi?
Sure, yeah. I would say that I believe it's something around 3/4 of the folks who are in LA who are unhoused are unsheltered. So the majority of folks are living either in an encampment or like a single tent, or, you know, sometimes just they don't have anything. They're just on the sidewalk. So Measure H, the homeless services measure, it provided, you know, outreach and support for those folks, but there isn't really a lot on the other end for permanent housing to actually like get folks through. In terms of folks who are, when you say like unsheltered or folks who are homeless but they aren't unsheltered, do you mean folks who are living in like shelters, or do you mean in cars? Or
I was unhoused for 2.5 years. I never once lived in an encampment. I was on the streets, not in an encampment, because I was safer actually not in an encampment.
Yeah.
In a car, in hotels,
Yeah.
back on the street. So I understand the house communities urging of clearing encampments.
Yeah.
Not all unsheltered, unhoused people are in encampments in large groupings.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And I think sometimes we see like this political energy that's steered towards, you know, clearing an encampment, or, you know, maybe getting folks who are living in an encampment into interim housing because it's a big encampment and the people around are complaining. But you're right, that is unfair to folks who are not in an encampment, who are still unhoused, who still need services. As far as I can tell, Measure H, or currently our homeless services funding does provide outreach and support for all folks who are experiencing homelessness, not just those who are in encampments.
Mhm.
I would imagine that the only issue might be that it might be harder to like find those folks or to outreach to those folks if we don't know where they are, if they're moving constantly. But
It's a
definitely,
transient situation. It affects a lot of women as well.
yeah, I could see
Yeah.
that.
And I had another question. So, in terms of the groups that it's focused on, are unaccompanied women going to be included? Because unaccompanied women, women without dependent children,
Uh-huh.
are more in total number than youth and veterans combined right now.
Yeah, I believe that there are, there are different, like there are a lot of different subpopulations. And on one of the slides there was like a list of, some of the groups that have a disproportionate, either they're
Yeah.
disproportionate.
Unaccompanied women weren't on there.
Yeah, that's not an exhaustive list.
Okay.
I can definitely take that feedback, but it's definitely not an exhaustive list. And there are more subpopulations, we know. Like there are always more subpopulations that we want to be mindful
Yeah,
of.
but right now, women without dependent children, women that are individuals, they're called
Mhm.
unaccompanied women,
Mm,
outnumber youth and veterans
yeah,
and are
yeah.
being left behind. So if you could take that back, that would be great. And I had one more question that I wanted to get more clarification. So the goal is to get people into permanent housing
Mhm.
without building more temporary shelter housing. So we're going to stay with, what is it, about 8,700 shelter beds and make the push being in building the permanent housing.
Yeah, I mean, there could always be an expansion of the amount of shelter beds we have as well. But the thinking in, when we get more permanent supportive housing and we get folks who have been, living in shelters or they're in interim beds, we can get them through to that housing. It clears up more space in the shelters for
Yeah.
new folks to get in. So I think one of the problems that we have in LA is that folks are staying in shelter for a very long time because there's nowhere else to go. There's no permanent housing. Once we have more permanent housing, then folks will be able to leave the shelter that they're staying in more quickly,
Yeah.
and more folks will be able to come in and use that shelter bed.
Yeah, and I just so that I work as a lived experience advisor, and I've just worked on projects about the recidivism rates of people that fall back into homelessness.
Mm,
And I'm sure part of this is to address that and hire more, like you were saying,
mhm.
social workers, mental health care workers that can work with people once they're housed
Yeah,
to stay housed
yeah.
and really put down roots and settle in where they are, which I think addressing that, and that sounds like a big component of this, will be crucial. Just crucial that people have the continued support.
Yeah, definitely 100%. It's not just about building the actual building, but also creating the support system. There's a statistic that is permanent supportive housing, which is, housing with the right supports, whether that's a social worker or anything else that comes with the housing unit, is 90% effective. So folks who get housed in permanent housing, they stay in that housing. It's just a matter of making sure that the housing that we're creating has those supports for folks.
Exactly. Thank
Yeah,
you for answering all my questions. I appreciate it.
Of course, thank you.
A
Those were
cause
really
near
great
and dear to my
questions.
heart.
I just want to say I initially heard about this ballot measure from someone I know at PATH. And so we've done like a walking tour of one of their facilities before. Great permanent supportive housing. And so they back it. They know we need more money. They know we need more of not just that kind of housing, but especially that kind of housing, and then all other kinds of housing too. And I see that this ballot measure could really sort of give the support in all of the ways that we need it.
Yeah, and
So
for
yeah,
people like Pat, the people concerned, the case managers that are working, they're carry incredibly large caseloads right now that it's just, I know so many, it's just difficult. And they're highly trained people, you know, they've studied and gone to school for social work, and they're coming out and working with people and doing such a great job, but they're overextended. We need more people in those roles so that they can have manageable caseloads. It's kind of like the situation in education when the classrooms get too big, the kids don't get the attention they need. Well, the same thing happens with the caseworkers right now.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's a very dedicated workforce.
Yeah, absolutely. And they deserve to be paid so much better than they are as well. This ballot measure has some stuff to ensure that service workers and social workers, outreach workers, all of those folks get paid better. But also not in this ballot measure, but I know the city and county are trying to do some stuff on workforce development and building that pipeline as well.
The city and county and also the federal government is working
Okay.
on it as well, because a lot of the people that work in social services also experience housing affordability problems, because for professional jobs, they're on the lower end of the scale. You know, much like teachers, so social workers, and people
Yeah,
that are
exactly.
just so driven by their calling, but they're not bringing in corporate level money, you know. So
Which
I know
seems to
when
be
I was
what people
unhoused,
need these days.
Mhm.
Which seems to be what people need these days just to live a comfortable life. It's terrible. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Kim. I don't know if we have anything else. I think we covered all of our bases, right? Yeah. So we'll reach out just with some follow-up stuff. We will share some of like the messaging. And we hope that if you're able to be a circulator for us and actually collect signatures, we can provide more information like the stuff that Jaime showed in the slide, where to go, the hours of all of that. We can share all of that with y'all too. So expect an email and or let us know if you're like, yeah, I want to get out there and gather signatures. We'll be like, yeah, do it, and we'll give you all the stuff. Okay, so thank you. I just want to say thank you to everyone who is here tonight and anyone who may be viewing this in the future. I want to thank you, Aditi Shakarwar from United Way LA. You have laid out all of the stuff for us, so thank you so much. Thank you, Jaime Del Rio from Abundant Housing LA, really organizing for us and getting us going with the energy. And I just want to thank all of you for giving your time. Again, people here and watching in the future, for giving your time and your care and your empathy and your energy in helping us get this this ballot. I'm sorry, this measure on the ballot come later this year. So yay, us, yay! All right, y'all. If there's no other questions or anything, I think we'll call it here. And I just hope you have a fantastic night, and I wish you nothing but joy going forward.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye, y'all.